friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're going to talk about some new indie releases. We have some brand new single eyeshadows from Lethal Cosmetics. They've added 6 new multi-chromes to their line, and they also have released 6 Pure Metals eyeshadows. I have all 12 of those new eyeshadows here, so we are going to take a close-up look at those swatches and lots of different types of lighting. You know me, I like to be really extra with my swatches. We also have a brand new eyeshadow palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. This is launching on July 20th, so I really wanted to talk about this, show you some swatches. We'll also get to see this palette in action. So I'm just focusing on these 2 releases in this indie palette roundup today because I really want to give you a lot of swatches with the Lethal singles. I also wanted to make sure that I talked about this Fighter palette before it launches. Let's start with these Lethal shadows. I'm going to show you a close-up look at these and a whole lot of swatches. This is the Constellation Empty Palette. These are magnetic palettes, so you can change the order. You can swap out the shadows in any of these. They do have nice big mirrors inside. I like a mirror in a palette like this particularly because it tends to be the only palette that I travel with, since I like to build my own palettes for each trip. Now I have these laid out like every other shadow is a Pure Metals and then every other shadow is one of the new multi-chromes. I just liked the way it looked. I didn't want to keep them separated. I thought that they looked cute all mixed together in here. You can still sort of see the Lethal imprints, but I have been using these. I've been wearing them, I've been swatching them, so they are getting some decent love. You can tell not only the imprints are worn off, but the inside of my palette's kind of messy. And for all of the Lethal magnetic palettes, they have these little holes in the back, so it's easy to pop out the shadows without risking damaging the eyeshadow pan itself. First up for swatches are the new multi-chromes. As usual, I have finger swatches on top and then brush swatches below. All of my brush swatches are done with a dry, flat eyeshadow brush. I don't use any primer, I don't dampen my brush, nothing like that. These are just the shadows straight onto my skin. And first you're seeing them with my full studio lighting. So this is with like a ring light. It's still really accurate to what they look like, but this is what they look like with a lot of direct light. Now I want to show you what these look like with just the overhead light, like the light bulb that's in my normal room in my house. This is what they are going to look like if you swatch them at your house or in your office when you're wearing them to school or whatever. This is what the colors are going to look like in normal overhead light bulb type of lighting. I also want to show you what these look like in a darkened room with flash and in motion, because that's what really sets off these shimmers and sparkles. And if you decide to wear these out on a date night, to an event, to a club, or whatever it may be, this is the reaction you're going to get from these shadows, and they are particularly stunning when applied with a fingertip. I think that's generally the way it goes with super shimmery metallic type of shades. These also layer really well, so you can put them on top of another color if you want a more intense base underneath, either a cream shadow or like another darker color. You can layer them up really nicely. Now these metallics, the Pure Metals, are a lot more opaque than the multi-chrome shadows that we just looked at. You're going to see these same type of swatches, same lighting situations. The Pure Metals shades are $9 each, with the exception of that very last one, Bismuth, which is super holographic looking. That one is $11.50. And then all of the multi-chromes are $16.50 each. If you get these in the bundles, there is a bit of a savings, but you probably already know by now, if you're familiar with multi-chromes and indie shadows, they do tend to be more expensive. So I think if you're interested in all of the shades, the bundle is the best way to go because you can save a couple bucks. Otherwise, I would just choose wisely based on what you already own to make sure that you're not spending so much on rebuying a shade that you might already have something similar. Can we just take a moment for this very last shade here? Look at how stunning this is with the flash when it's in motion and you can see all of those rainbow glitters really reflecting. It's so magical. I will say it's pretty annoying to remove. I get a ton of glittery sparklies stuck to me. It's definitely the hardest one to get rid of, and after swatching these so much and using them so much, this one is the biggest pain in my butt, but look how pretty it is. I wish that one was easier to remove, but otherwise no complaints. I think these are so pretty, and I actually kind of like these more than the multi-chromes, believe it or not. All right, now you've seen a lot of swatches of those lethal shadows. Let's move on to this palette I'm very excited about. This is the first very neutral heavy release from Fantasy Cosmetica. And of course, they still found a way to make an interesting twist on neutrals. We have a lot of shifty shades in here, a beautiful balance of cool tones and warm tones, just a little bit of pop of color in here as well. I'm very excited to play with this palette and to be able to share this with you. By the way, I do have an affiliate code for Fantasy Cosmetica. I don't have a code for Lethal, but my friend Teresa does. But I have a code for Fantasy Cosmetica. It's the same as my other affiliate codes. It's just my first name, Amanda. And that will save you a couple dollars if you decide to pick anything up, which I highly recommend that you check this brand out. They released my favorite palette of the year last year. Honestly, this Fighter palette is probably my second favorite from the brand. I need to do some more ranking videos. I haven't done a ranking video in a while, but now that I have quite a few Fantasy Cosmetica palettes, maybe we can do a little ranking video for this brand. Anyway, I'm giving away the review before I even get to the info. We're going to take a close-up look at the Fighter palette. I'm also going to show you finger and brush swatches and this eye look that I'm wearing today that I created with the Fighter palette. So let's get into it. Here is the Fighter palette. I love this stained glass look. This is so beautiful. It's so unique. The shades on the packaging match the shades on the shadows inside. I know we all love that. This is a sleeve, so you just slide the palette out, and the artwork is the exact same on the sleeve front and back as it is on the actual palette itself. This palette is retail priced at $38.99. You can buy these shadows individually. The matte shadow singles are $4.99, the multi-dimensional shimmer singles are $5.99, and the multi-chrome shadows are $9.99. If you just have a couple of these that you're interested in, you can pick them up separately, but I love this packaging so much that I really would be sad to not have the total package. I'm also an eyeshadow palette junkie, so maybe just use your better judgment. Be better than me. Here are the swatches for the Fighter palette. Again, finger swatches on top, brush swatches below. I think it's really interesting how different the yellow shade Valor looks between the finger and the brush swatch. Something about that one really interacted with like the heat or the natural oils or something on my fingers. I do a really good job of cleaning and drying off my fingers and my brushes between all of my swatches. This is just one of those shadows that decided to react differently. There's a lot of my favorite things going on in this palette here. I love a purple. I love a super shimmery metallic. I love a mustardy yellow. I love neutral, true neutral undertoned neutrals. There's just a lot of my personal go-tos in this palette. I really enjoy that this is an interesting take on a neutral palette. There are still some colors in here. I mean, red, purple, and yellow are not neutrals. So truly 1/3 of this palette is still colorful. I love the blend of these shades. I like that nothing is too crazy out there, but it's also not boring, blah. We've seen this all before. Also, side note about the tutorial here, I wasn't trying to make these grays very opaque. I was just putting down a little bit of a base. So without that context, it may look like these shadows are underperforming, but if I wanted them to be really solid on the lid, I definitely could have achieved that. I was just using them to deepen up underneath these shimmers and give me a little surface for blending my shimmers. Because of the way I applied them, it made them look all patchy and weird, but I was really just slapping them on because I'm going for this super layered, smudgy, smoky look. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I probably wasn't doing the greatest service to these shadows in that moment. But for the overall look, I think you can tell everything really blended and just melded together so beautifully. I love this look. I ended up wearing this all day long, and despite the fact that I had so many sparkles and smudges and eyeliner and all of this, it held up beautifully. It ended up looking great all day, and it wasn't so dark and heavy that I felt weird and abnormal wearing it throughout the daytime. I know I'm going to be going back to this palette over and over again for interesting neutral looks, and even as a companion palette to others that just need a little bit of a grounding color story to mix in with them. As usual, Fantasy Cosmetica gives us unique and on-theme color stories and packaging, high-performing formulas. Definitely one of my favorite indie brands and at the top of my list of brands to watch. I know this one's going to be a hit, and I think it's going to pair well with a lot of their other palettes too, so it just makes great sense within the existing line as well. I love it. I think these are both really great releases. They both make sense for their respective brands, and both of these brands have a wonderful reputation for good quality, good customer service. As far as I'm concerned, I've had nothing but good experiences from both of these brands. And I think these are just such different releases that it really, which one is better or more worth it really depends on what your personal style is and what you already own. I am just a little bit more excited for this Fighter palette. This is the one that I can see myself wanting to pick up again tomorrow and experiment with. So I think that kind of says a lot. These lethal shadows are really nice. I've enjoyed them and I've worn them quite a bit over the past couple of days. But if I had to pick a favorite of the two releases, just me personally, I would pick the Fighter palette. Now's the time when I want to hear what you think about these releases. Are you interested in either of these? Do you want to see more of these palettes in a future video? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! This is the Fighter palette. I almost said Fighter pilot. It's not a fighter pilot. It's a Fighter palette. Killing it. My nails match my eyeshadow. It's been a while since I was able to make that happen, but I'm excited. Finally, matching nail game coming back strong. This has to be my favorite Fantasy Cosmetica packaging thus far. It's so pretty. It is just beautiful. I love the mountain stained glass landscape in the background behind the mirror. This is so pretty. This is their best packaging yet, in my opinion. Hey, that didn't make sense. Boo. I love a smoky, smudgy, cool tone, shifty little eye look like this. This is the type of look I do a lot with the ColourPop Troublemaker palette, which is also one of my favorites from the year last year. So this is definitely my vibe. This is so pretty. I really like it. She's wearing eyeliner. She's wearing a smoky eye. Look at her go. I really just wanted to avoid these going into the box of shame. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out my box of shame video. The box of shame is growing, by the way, so I really need to do some more episodes of that series to kind of get things rolling a little bit. Doing great. This color. Come on. Come on now. Come on now. Okay, where was I? I don't remember. I don't know what I'm saying. Huh? What? I'm not doing a good job today. Never mind. I gotta go edit this video so I can post it for you so that I can put it out before this palette comes out. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me today, because I enjoyed hanging out with you. And I just want you to know that I love your sweet little face, and I will see you real soon. Okay, bye. Bye-bye now. Bye.